Okay, I think we'll make a start. So this is the final session of today. There will undoubtedly be some overlap with the first session because a lot that was discussed in the first session was actually what we were hoping to talk about now, but you will have had the benefit of sitting through a number of technical presentations that give you a greater sense perhaps than you may have had before about where things are at present. What we're hoping to do over the next 90 minutes is talk further about what the consequences might be of these emerging technologies for strategically relevant decisions. This is not just about, should we or should we not have Trident. This is about deployment, it's about declaratory policy, it's about how submarines should patrol, it's about whether there should be more submarines, continuous at sea deterrence, whether there are arms control consequences, and also crucially, not just about whether some adversary will neutralise or could potentially neutralise British SSBNs, or whether this sort of technology might encourage attitudes within Washington to go back to questions of whether they can achieve strategic dominance and what impact that might have on strategic stability. So there are a number of possible scenarios here. What if there is a greater uncertainty over the confidence in assumed second strike capability that currently people do assume we have? What if that weakens? What if this technology shift unbalances things, makes things less predictable? What are the consequences for decisions? Now, the context of this is that we have just had a decision in Parliament to go forward on the successor class. That the assumption must be that that decision is fixed for some time, and the plan currently is that it will take roughly 16 to 17 years to the in-service date of the current submarine. Now, your maths is probably as good as mine. 16 to 17 years is longer than Bill Gates' 10 years. The successor class basic design of the submarine itself, its length, its shape, and the principal components are now as good as fixed. There are ways in which some of those components might develop over the next few years, but over those 16 to 17 years before the in-service date, there will be a large number of iterations of technology development in the sort of areas that we've been talking about. And if you look at this throughout the life, is my microphone not working? Is that better? Okay. If you look at this throughout the life of the expected successor, we're looking at 2065 to 2070, which of course is a long time from now. Now, what we've been looking at is the possibility of technology that involves sensors. It involves platforms that may be networked, autonomous, long life, maybe cheap or disposable. I don't think we're looking at nuclear-powered ones, but we are looking at potential mix of moving and static, underwater, surface, aerial platforms, combining with manned assets, which together could, and I emphasize could, come out with an enhanced anti-submarine warfare capability that compromises the stealth. Why is that important? The stealth of the SSBN is absolutely core to its modus operandi. If the SSBN is not stealthy, then there are real questions as to whether that is the right platform to be choosing. I've heard several people ask why we're doing this. I can only speak for BASIC here, but I have to say that BASIC has been attempting to shift the quality of the debate in this country away from a simple knee-jerk for or against whether this country should have nuclear weapons or not, towards a framing that is more sophisticated and is looking in terms of risk assessment and responsibility. This country has responsibilities at the international level, and we invest heavily in attempts to make things more stable and to bring about a greater global cooperation. But there are risks as well in terms of this project, whether one agrees with it or not. There are risks in terms of the project delivery, in terms of costs, in terms of opportunity costs, in terms of a whole different variety of potential risks, which have to be managed by people in the building next door, by contractors and subcontractors and the like. These are very complex projects. We're interested in that risk because it does have consequences for the sorts of work that we all need to be involved in. So this is not something that we can just wash our hands of and just say, this is not our responsibility. This is a challenging judgment. It's a judgment that involves obviously highly confidential material that most of us do not have access to. It's a judgment that inevitably involves prejudice because we all come at this with our own particular legacy and belief systems. But it is a judgment that is also influenced by deeply uncertain, unpredictable futures. And we can't with any confidence say that there will simply be an extension of current submarine, anti-submarine warfare technology. And equally, we cannot say with confidence that there is a revolution about to happen in the next year or two. But there is change. So the reason why we've put this panel together in the way that we have is that we have next to me Dominic Jenkins, who has studied at great length the history of warfare, going back quite some time. And about how the emergence of new technology can have quite significant impacts. And I'm hoping that he can communicate some of his learning that is relevant from that perspective. We have Sue Miller, who has been involved for many years in the way politicians have to deal with these issues from a position where the context and the media are approaching this from a very simplistic way, where this is usually often used as a proxy for football, for political games that have very little to do with the sorts of things that we're talking about, whether it's international responsibility or technology developments. And we have Tom, who has huge experience inside the Ministry of Defence around how officials can deliver in the context of strategic uncertainty. And I hope that we can have a conversation here that will involve differences of perspective and differences and disagreements, but will also respect the joint interest that we all have in reducing the risks and managing the responsibility that we have.